Hi, I'm Dawn Damari, and this is another episode of A Teaspoon of Healing. Today, I have a guest with me, Claire Uncapher. Claire is an intuitive and transformational life coach. Hi, Claire.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, and I hope you're having a good day so far.
Of course, yes. Yes, great day.
Great. So, do you mind sharing a little bit about your background and some of your experience with our listeners?
Sure. So today I'll tell you how I got here, but I help people uncover the root cause of their issue. And I say that like broadly, but it's always sometimes people aren't even aware. It's just like stressed, unhappy, overwhelmed, don't know why, or I don't know why I am the way I am. Some people specifically want to know the root cause of their depression and anxiety, and that's a big part of my mission is to help spread the message that, and it's becoming more popular. I've noticed the more I've been speaking about this, is that depression and anxiety, we can consider to start looking at them as symptoms of the problem. And I was even reading Dr. Faith Harper. She has a PhD in neuroscience, and she calls depression and anxiety adaptive strategies. And she was even talking about I think it's Unfuck Your Brain. Excuse the language. But that's the name of the book.
I like that name.
She was talking about how, emotions are just emotions until we don't process them, and then they become a mood.
Okay.
Right. And so there was so much focus in my own journey, my 28-year journey with depression and anxiety, on getting well. And I've always been focused on health and searched for answers in the clinical world. I'm a nurse, so I kind of have one foot in both worlds. I don't practice as a nurse anymore. I do this full time, but I searched clinical things like medicine and therapy and all kinds of things that they told me to try. And then those were not working. And that's the thing that I'm noticing is medicine and therapy just doesn't work for everybody. It's just not giving them what they're wanting. It's not, it's good, but we want our standards are high. We want to be happy. And that was me. I didn't want to just cope and manage. I wanted to not have it anymore, but I didn't even know that was possible. I just kind of wanted to get a handle on it and feel like I had some control over it. I even tried all the holistic things, but then I stumbled upon root cause work, which is it's a subconscious approach, right?
Okay.
And that's when I realized I couldn't figure it out before, was because I didn't have access to the information that I needed in order to truly heal. And so I was just running in circles, and those brilliant therapists that were so compassionate in trying to help me, they couldn't, because we weren't talking about the right things. And we can consult our own brilliant subconscious minds that know everything about us. Our minds know what we need to know what needs to be healed. And once we start that journey, it's almost like your issues will start bubbling up, and they'll pick me. I want to be I want to be released. I want out. And that's when I really started noticing, oh my gosh, like I started separating my identity and depression and anxiety. So I was someone who was depressed and had an anxiety disorder, but that's when I started separating who I was from depression and anxiety. And they were that was the first step. They were just something I experienced sometimes. But then I started learning that I could heal the beliefs that were causing the thoughts and beliefs that were causing the depressive and anxious symptoms, and that it wouldn't be effort anymore to not feel that way. I just simply would feel different because I thought different, because I believed different. So I was different.
Oh, thank you for that. That's really interesting. And you had mentioned the subconscious, and that's definitely a topic that people have talked about on the show before, and a lot of people are really interested in that. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. I'm curious about that myself. Now, guests often share a little bit about their own stories of healing or
Mm-hmm.
transformation on this show, and you shared a little bit. Do you want to share any more from your journey out of depression and anxiety? I think this will be really helpful for a lot of people.
I think it's really important to know, and I share a lot of funny stuff on my Instagram feed about the healing
I'll have to
journey.
look.
And we all say, I think, in the healing space, we say it's healing's not always pretty, but we need to adjust our expectations and know that the healing journey is like a game of chutes and ladders, and you're not doing anything wrong if you slide down some spaces after you've worked so hard to climb up. You're not doing anything wrong. It's part of the process. But you're not going to have to work as hard to get back up to where you were. I always say, like, growth and change and transformation take effort. You know,
Mhm.
they take effort, and we get tired.
Yes, that's so true. We really
and
do.
and it's almost like you hit this healing fatigue, and it's okay. Just, I feel like, if we just know that that's part of the journey, it doesn't mean it's time to give up. And so my journey was like that. It was 5 steps forward, 2 steps back, 6 steps forward, but the progress over time was great. And I stress with my clients so much the importance of self-compassion, because that's part of the depressive and anxious personality. I've noticed is we're so hard on ourselves. Like, we're so
Mhm.
hard on ourselves.
Yes.
And instead of just saying, okay, it's a bad day, I'm having a rough time. Why? Right? Why? And that, I'm big on, like, what's really going on. Because there's something that has been poked. And so once we can uncover, and it's usually like, what does it mean? So even myself this morning, I had a little disturbance in the force, and I was like, "Ooh, what's that? What's going on?" And was able to, like, oh, okay. Well, I had a conversation yesterday with my mom, and something in the conversation was like a grain of sand, and
Yeah.
we'd kind of skated over it, and I thought, okay, what did I make that comment mean about me? I assigned some meaning to it, and I made it mean something about me, like that I hadn't changed, or, something like that. And it really irked me. So once I was able to expose that, and that's the big part of the subconscious journey, is exposure, right?
Mhm.
Then the real you, the uh, the wise you, the calm you, the you that is really you can come forward and go, okay, of course, like, validate myself, right? Of course I had that reaction, because um, mothers can do that to us. And I love my
True.
mom, she's great,
Yes.
but mothers can
Yes.
get us sometimes. and
It's
um
true.
and but it's not true. I see her, like, so infrequently. And we were talking about, even she and I talked about being okay with people talking about a version of us that no longer exists.
Mhm.
And that was really hard for me. Also, I think I'm touching on the ugly truths of healing. So it's not linear.
Mhm.
You will feel like you've been kind of kicked down sometimes. Self-care in those moments is so important. Like I said, maybe you just have growth fatigue. Go take a nap, or get a manicure, or go for a walk, or watch a funny movie, or something. Take a break, and then then you can get back on the horse of whatever you're doing. And then also, another ugly truth of healing is not all relationships will survive the changes. That was a shock for me. Is not all relationships survive the changes. And I've seen that with my clients over and over again. And it's hard because sometimes people can't accept a different version of us. They almost want, I had one client who she was doing so great. But every time we're talking about mothers, every time she was around her mom, it's almost like her mom wouldn't let her be not depressed.
Mm-hmm.
It was really, she was like, it's really strange. Like, and she's like, no, mom, I'm good. Like, I'm good. And she even hit it on the head. She said, I think my mom needs me to be depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And it became, we worked on it and she worked on it, but it became that some distance needed to happen because being around you and a friend or a family, whoever it is, being around you doesn't make me feel good about myself.
Yeah.
I love you, but
Mm-hmm.
being around you doesn't make me feel good about myself. And I want to feel good.
Yeah, that
I
sounds
want
good.
to feel good. And so, and it's not this big breakup. I mean, sometimes I guess it could be, but it's just you start prioritizing your peace and your happiness and what's right for you.
Mm-hmm.
That is freeing. I was really surprised to learn people feeling unsafe to be themselves, like not safe to be themselves, and just kind of feeling that they were not acceptable the way they were. They were not lovable. I can't show up and be myself because the me that is me isn't lovable or acceptable or worthy of having a friendship with you or whatever it is.
Now, you had mentioned root cause, and we're familiar with that, but some people may not be. So, do you mind sharing your description or definition of what root cause is?
Sure. So root cause is the reason, right? So
Yes.
let's even talk about, I just wrote a story this morning about a client case study, and maybe some people can relate to this. This is an example of root cause. So she actually came in, it was her second session, and she plopped down on the couch and she put her hands over her face and peeked through her fingers and said, can we work on stress? Is that like a thing? Like, can we just like focus on stress? And I kind of chuckled and said, yeah, we can focus on stress. And, I asked her more questions, like what is stressful right now in your life? And she was very successful in corporate business, but she was having a lot of problems with her boss and
Gosh.
feeling like her work was never good enough. And so it was like she said, I'm under this constant pressure from myself, but also from her, and it just doesn't feel good. And it's almost like disproportional to the situation. And that's a big
Right.
clue that there's
Okay.
something there, is when it's
Okay.
disproportional to the situation. So a lot of people get to root cause or the subconscious mind through hypnotherapy. I
Okay.
do have a hypnotherapy certification, actually
Oh,
three of
cool.
them, but I don't hypnotize people.
Oh,
I have a
okay.
different way of getting to the subconscious
Oh,
mind. And you're conscious and awake, call it a hack.
oh, that's really
and
interesting.
and what you do is you take someone, you direct the mind to bring up a situation related to, what is, you ask the mind, what is the root cause of this situation, right? And it's really, I'll tell you what it's like to experience it. Flashes will start going through your head of different memories, when you just kind of relax and you're off. And it's really, you have to allow the process to happen because it works and there's actually like science to it. But some flashes will happen. And then even like maybe a scene or a memory will come up. It'll be super random. Like, whoa, I'm 8 years old and I'm in my front yard in my white baptism dress and I'm twirling around, and you don't understand why you're there. You don't understand why your mind's brought it up. You don't understand anything, but that's what comes to your mind. So for her, she went back to a scene when she was 17 years old. And often, the root cause is much younger, but
Okay.
when I'm working with type A people, um, oftentimes I've noticed, won't jump back to younger years right away. We kind of have to inch our way there. And
All
that's
right.
exactly what she did.
Okay.
Um, and so she went to a scene when she was 17 years old, and she was showing her dad her report card. And she was like number 4 or 5 in her high school out of like 350
Wow.
people. She was a good student. Her dad was a principal, I think, at that school or a different school. I don't know what it was. She was proud of herself, and she was like showing him. In her mind, she was like, look, Dad, aren't I awesome? And he had this stern look on his face, and he legitimately said, why aren't you number one?
Oh no.
Right.
Gosh.
So,
Yeah.
and you're aware. So the 40-year-old version of her is able to be kind of with that 17-year-old version of her and understand what she's thinking, understand what. So I asked her, what are you concluding right now? And she said, it'll never be good enough. I'm never good. It doesn't matter how good I am. It won't be good enough. And it's like ding, ding, ding. Does this sound familiar? You just said that about your boss, right?
Mm-hmm.
We heal. It's really funny because when you're doing this process, anything that comes into your mind is relevant. And it leads you, your mind is playing charades with you, it's showing you what you need to know. We revisited all these times that had been the message. So now we understand when people talk about, oh, you have limiting beliefs that are holding you back. That's
Mm-hmm.
what I'm talking about. She formed a belief that her best will never be good enough, that she just wasn't enough, right? The way she is
Right.
isn't enough, and her best isn't enough. And can you imagine how that has colored her whole world and how she feels about herself? I'm not enough. And
Oh
what I
gosh.
do, no matter how much effort I put into it, is never going to be enough. And that's our problem, right? That's now we've discovered why you are the way you are and why you're reacting the way you're reacting and what is kind of this, I just said it earlier, right? The sand under the grain of sand and that's underneath the disturbance in the force. And so then you heal that. There's tools and techniques that you use to heal that right there. It doesn't take 6 months. Right?
Yeah.
And you literally rewrite, change your belief. You're deciding not to believe that anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
it's as practitioners, we have ways of doing that. And that's why subconscious work is so cool, because the next time I talked to her, I asked her how things were going, and she's, yeah, I don't, and she's like, I don't give a F what like I do good work, but I don't really care what my boss thinks anymore because I know
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing my best. And that's the start of self acceptance. To heal from anxiety and depression, we have to develop self acceptance because we've never accepted ourselves. And when you truly accept yourself, you can't be rejected. I know my worth. I feel my worth. So
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't matter to me whether or not you like me. Does that make sense? And so my
Absolutely.
behavior, now I'm not a people pleaser anymore. Now I take care of myself. Self love, self acceptance, self compassion, self trust, developing that, repairing. I have a whole exercise where we go back to the moment that you broke trust with yourself. And so there's a kind of like a way that you can start healing those things. And then you start, oh my gosh, then you start disidentifying with depression and anxiety and understand why you were feeling the symptoms of that, because you didn't love yourself, you thought you weren't good enough. What I love about it is it's experiential. It's not me
Mm-hmm.
telling you believe. Like, you probably have some beliefs that you think you're not good enough. You get to experience it and see for yourself. It's like I'm taking you to the movie with me. You saw the movie. It's not me telling
Mm-hmm.
you about the movie. You were sitting right next to me watching it. That's what's so cool about this work that's different. And I'm not anti psychotherapy, but that's how it's different than
Okay.
psychotherapy.
So on your bio, I kind of saw that a little bit about your perspective on mental health. Do you mind sharing that and why sometimes treatments can fail the clients that are seeking help?
Yeah, I mean, there's and I was a mental health nurse for several years, and
Okay.
and
Okay.
there are I'm not, some people think I'm anti-medicine and anti-therapy, and I'm not. There are absolutely instances where therapy and medication are appropriate. I'm talking about the people that are doing those things. So many people yet are still experiencing the symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And they start to believe something's inherently wrong with them. My brain's just messed up. I'm just
Okay.
crazy. Whatever it is, something's wrong with them. And I started to realize, outside of like extreme mental health disorders, just the run of the mill, you know, things like, what if nothing's actually wrong with us? And the medical model now, you go to the doctor, you get a diagnosis, you give it some medicine, you get referred to a therapist, and now you've got this disease basically, or diagnosis that you have to manage. And by the way, there's really no cure, but you can cope and manage and
Mm-hmm.
get, but it's always there. But there's nothing wrong with us, right?
Right.
There's undigested feelings, beliefs, thoughts that need to be exposed and released. And once those are done, you're sad because something sad happened,
Yeah.
you you're angry because of the way you were treated, and that anger lives in your body, you
Mm-hmm.
know, that
I
deep,
relate to that. Yes.
yeah,
It
that
can really,
deep
you can feel
anger.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the hurt, all
Yeah.
the times you've been rejected, maybe by your own biological parents. And like, it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Yeah.
like, wow, if my parents can't love me, who can?
Yeah.
If they can't
Gosh.
love me, who
Yes.
can? Right? They're supposed to have to love me. It's kind of like part of the gig. But if they can't even love me, and they think I'm a, pain, then I must not be very lovable. And that's the subconscious conclusion you come to. And so those are the things that I would really love if we could start to validate. Of course you're feeling the way we're feeling. I had one client, and she was telling me kind of a little bit about her life and her background, and she'd been through incest from her
Oh,
father,
gosh.
who was also an alcoholic. There was also a lot of unhealthy family dynamics, and she like laid it out on the line, and I was like, I think you're doing pretty well, actually. Listen to what you just told me you've been through. Of course you're struggling. Of
Yeah.
course you're not doing well. Of course you're kind of confused and don't know which way to go in life. I could see the relief on her face because the message she'd been given by her doctors and her parents was, man, you are really effed up. But no, she wasn't. She had
No.
just been through some things, and nobody had helped her. I met a woman that was telling, when people find out what I do, they love to tell me about their mental
I'm
health
sure.
stuff. But she was telling me about her little boy who was like a preteen. Something had happened in his school district, some sort of gun violence or something, and a friend he knew died. Well, he started having some behavioral changes. All of a sudden, wouldn't go to social outings, was afraid to go to school, didn't even want to leave the house, really. And it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And so they took him to the doctor, who referred them to a psychiatrist, who diagnosed him with an anxiety disorder, put him on medication, and referred him to a therapist. And in my head, I'm thinking, how heartbreaking.
Yeah.
This little boy is going to grow up thinking something is wrong with him, and that he has this anxiety disorder that now he needs to manage and medicate
Mm-hmm.
and own. But I had obviously not worked with him, but doing what I do, and just kind of her briefly telling me, I was like, you know what happened? He must have come up with some sort of belief of it's unsafe to leave the house, or
Yep.
something about being unsafe, right?
Mhm.
And if I just stay home, I'm safe. His parents are like, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? Well, he doesn't know. Maybe he's slightly able to articulate it. But if we would turn our attention to what he'd been through and what is keeping him frozen, and help him process that and access that and take him through that journey, rather than just like, let's just decrease these symptoms by medicating them. And I'm not anti-medication. Maybe he did need medication. Like I said, I don't. And I think the parents did absolutely what they needed to do because their son was struggling. I just don't think enough people know about subconscious work and root cause
Mhm.
healing. And that I would love to see us go in a direction of validating what people have been through.
I agree with that. And how do you think we could get there? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, by just validating each other, and
Like
by, I speak a lot on this, and I talk about, like, what if nothing's wrong with us? Like, what if, if Dawn's struggling, we say, Dawn, what's going on? And she's like, I don't really know. I don't really know. Well, we know how to access what's really wrong. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were like, some people are funny about subconscious work. So I think we need to really get more comfortable with it. And I said, it's not scary. It's actually
Mhm.
freeing to uncover what's really wrong, because you've kind of been trying to put your finger on it, but you haven't been able to. But I explained to her, it's like if you're looking for the answers to a problem and in a library, and you're looking at all the books on the shelf, and because you're really searching, but the answers you're looking for aren't in those books, so you're not going to be able to find the answer you're looking for is in this book that's in this hidden compartment that's locked with a key. Fathers of psychotherapy were all about the subconscious mind. So
Mhm.
I don't know what happened that it got
Yeah, it's true.
so scary. But and I don't even like hypnotize people. It's actually we're really more connected to what's really going on than we think, if we just stop for a minute and kind of follow the breadcrumbs and play detective.
Absolutely. I really liked how you mentioned at the beginning it's just validating each other, even people who are not therapists or life coaches,
Mhm.
people just validating each other and listening to each other's stories and saying, "Oh gosh, validating that and also validating all the great things about each other as well with our friends, with our family."
Kind of develop this false, we call it toxic positivity,
Mhm.
or bypassing emotions.
Yes.
Why don't we let each other sit in our sadness? Like, now I'm not
Yeah.
talking about wallowing, but I was thinking about it today. Like, if loss happens, and it doesn't have to be, it can be anything, right? It can be, it can be a big thing, like a friend, or it can be like something didn't work out that I really wanted it to work out. And now I have
Mhm.
this disappointment. And there's a little bit of disappointment and grief that needs to be felt,
Very true.
right?
Yes.
Before you can move on. And allowing people to feel that, instead of just trying to make them feel better right away.
Mhm.
And then just kind of, it's so powerful because I've been there, been so low, that
Yeah.
when someone tells me something, I don't want to commit suicide, but I don't want to live with this pain anymore. I go, yeah. And I feel that weight and that sadness. And then we sometimes, the truth and the feelings just have to hit air. But there's a lot of bypassing, and look at social media. I mean,
Mhm.
there's the post with the, what cover photo do you want on this post?
Yes,
What
exactly.
cover photo? So we're going around with cover photos
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
what's going on with us,
Mhm.
instead of just being like, I'm dealing with some grief because da, 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 and helping each other through that. No, not wallowing in it, but you know
Yeah.
normalizing. Like, you're not necessarily depressed if you're processing grief. You're not depressed if you're disappointed and sad, right?
Right.
You can allow yourself to be sad and feel sadness over something that's sad without calling it depression. Now, there's a point, right, that
Yeah.
it
There's
crosses
a point
over.
that it can, yeah, cross over.
But I don't even know that we need to call it that. Maybe it's just unprocessed sadness. Not every case. I mean, with all the millions and millions and millions and millions of people that suffer from depression and anxiety, is something really wrong with all of us? Or maybe, just maybe, part of what I do is emotional release work. And I believe emotions have density in our bodies because I know it. Because when I sit with a client and they release grief that they've been holding, or sadness, or anger, or rage, because it's not socially acceptable to feel angry or
That's
have
true.
rage, then once they've felt that and processed it and let it go, they're lighter. Their faces look lighter, and it feels better. So I think just normalizing, right? Not bypassing.
Hmm. Just letting each other sit with grief, sit with disappointment, and just allowing that and not trying to fix it. I like what you said about putting a cover photo too,
Yeah,
because that's
cover
something
photo on my day.
that we could do.
I got a
Yes.
cover
Thank
photo on
you.
my day today because I feel, right? Like I feel like crap, but I'm just going to put a smile on my face and show up for everybody. And so we bypass. And if I had not stopped today, to be honest, because I'm very sensitive to disturbance in the force, I call it.
Mhm.
But most people will go through a conversation, or something will happen. A friend will say something to them, and it rubs them the wrong way. It bothers them, but we just move on. But that sits there, right? And affects a lot of things. And so it's not scary. I think a big part of my message is it's not scary to look at what's really going on, to look at what's wrong. That's actually where the key to your freedom is.
I really like that. I really like that. I think I can see how you're so helpful to so many people. Now, so how can people work with you, and what are your offerings, and how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, they can go to claireuncapher.com and you can connect with me there. You can also come to Instagram. You can DM me. I'm really active on Instagram. And I have programs that you can work with me one-on-one, or I also have self-paced group. It's kind of like 5 steps that I take people through.
Okay.
And it was the kind of the journey that I went through, and the themes I noticed that kept coming up over and over and over again with clients. So it's a kind of stepwise 5 things, and you move through them as you move through them. And you can do it with me one-on-one, with a group, or on your own. So
Okay. Oh, that's great. So Claire Uncapher.com, and I will put I'll put that in the show notes, and so people can link to it, and I'll put it on my social media, or you can go to your Instagram, which is
yeah.
great. A lot of people will use that, and it's a great tool to get good information out, like what you're doing. So
Yeah.
thank you
Thanks,
for
Dawn.
that.
Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Now, before we sign off, I know we're running out of time. Is there something that you'd like to share with the people listening or watching this?
Um, what comes to my mind is just be kind to yourself, validate yourself, right? When we're having a hard day or a hard moment, or we're not performing at our peak, cut yourself some slack,
Mm-hmm.
right? Give yourself your best is good enough, and your best is every day. I have that quote from the 4 Agreements on my wall. And just love yourself, validate yourself, be kind to yourself, and love yourself. Yeah, talk to yourself the way you would a friend. And if you don't know how to be kind to yourself, then do that. If I had, a friend going through what I'm going through right now, what would I say to them?
I like that. So
And
love
then say
yourself,
that
and
to yourself.
say that to yourself, as as you would say to your friend. Treat yourself
Yeah,
like a
I
friend.
think negative self-talk is a hallmark in people that I experience depression and anxiety. I've noticed that it's just automatic.
Mm-hmm.
It's the automatic response, and it's actually one of the things that if you just tell them to change that consciously, even they might start to notice it, but it's difficult because it's so automatic and it's the way they've always been that being any different feels foreign and odd. And just kind of sit with that for a minute. Being nice and kind to myself is foreign. So then we wonder why we aren't happy, because we have somebody following us around all day, knocking us down, and it's ourselves.
Yeah.
We would break up with somebody that did that to us.
That's for sure. You're right about that. But it's ourselves that we have to break up with that side of ourselves.
You have to break up with that side of yourself. You have to uncover the real you and start falling in love with that and start caring for yourself the way that you should be cared for.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your insight, and thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And for the work, thanks for the work you're doing.
Absolutely.
It's
thank
really
you.
life-changing. Welcome. Well, again, thank you. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Susan, you remember the time we were in Orange County? We were driving around and we got lost, and we ran into this place called
Avila's El Ranchito.
You remember the place? The place had awesome decor and authentic margaritas.
Did you know that Avila's El Ranchito has been around since 1966? They have 13 locations throughout Orange County. Visit Salvador Avila's location in Lake Forest and Foothill Ranch for great food, ambiance, and specialty margaritas.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Please consult a physician or other health professional before undertaking changes in lifestyle or wellness habits. The author claims no responsibility to any person or entity for any liability, loss, or damage caused or alleged to be caused directly or indirectly as a result of the use, application, or interpretation of the information presented herein.